Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is April 10th, 2025, and I'm your host, James Joseph, joined today by Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello.
And Mr. John Lindemann.
Great to be here, James.
It's great to have you, John. This is episode 922. I know what you all expect us to start with. We will get to it in the second half of the show. I just don't want to deal with it right now. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it. Like, I have thoughts. We'll get to them. But right now, I just don't want to deal with that to start the show. I don't want to show on a bummer. But I am going to start the show on a bummer because Nintendo eShop is preparing for the future. And we heard about how the eShop on Switch 2 is going to not crash when you have the temerity to look at more than 10 games. Nintendo's eShop website, which has pretty much been the default way that I deal with the thing, except for maybe Deku deals. There is a combination of search parameters in their URLs that you can hit to get the list of games that have, in the order they released, showing all games. Nintendo does not put this option front and center on their website. You have to build it from the search strings because they don't want you to look at everything that's come out for the system. But, since the Switch 2 announcement a week and a day, they've made some changes. The first round of changes, they turned the screens from being rectangles into being squares. What do I mean by that? I mean exactly what I said. The Switch profile images, so how the shop works is there's an image, there's a text block under it a card that has title, has whatever tags are on there like new, sale, etc., its price, and then its categorization. Is it a game? Is it a DLC? Whatever. And then there's a little heart icon you can click to add it to your wish list. I think that's new. That might be new. The heart icon. So the images were 16:9. Well, about a week ago, they changed them to 4:3. This has had a very funny effect where apparently all games are supposed to have an icon, which is a 4:3. Excuse me, 1:1. They're squares. All games are supposed to have an icon, but it wasn't really surfaced anywhere. But for about a week, we were getting games popping up on the eShop that didn't have an icon. So they just had like a random screenshot with a bunch of gray space around it, which was pretty funny. But the other thing that they do, because part of this is, look, there is a lot of fucking AI generated images on eShop iconography. If you mouse over one of the images, you get a pan and scan of screenshots. Because it's 4:3, so they can't just put the screenshot there. So it cycles through the screenshots, but also it's panning through the image. It's very stupid. So that's a fun little feature they've added to the eShop. And I thought, I pointed this out to Seren in the chat, and she seemed surprised by this, which is interesting because she has worked with the eShop before. Now her games were fine because they had icons. But what's funnier isn't the fact there was a game that came out today called Hentai Puzzle: Muscular Guys, although that is funny, or Anime Girl: Bouncy Basketball, also funny. It's that they made a second addition to this page Monday, where it used to just be if you went to this search string and it was sort by release date and availability equals now, you would get the games in the order they came out. They have been, over the course of this week, they have been adding more and more shit at the top of the screen you have to scroll past to get to the list because they don't want you to see this either. So they added an explore by genre thing where your choices of all the genres that exist are racing, sports, simulation, and party. All games are now one of those 4 genres. Then there's a section called featured, where it has recently released games, so Xenoblade Chronicles X with a trailer button you can play, or Hello Kitty Island Adventure. And then there are Minecraft games is a category. These are games that have the Minecraft branding on them. Anime-style games. If you're looking for an interesting story where you can overcome conflict with either your wits or your mitts, check out our list of anime games. I bet Anime Girls Bouncy Balls isn't on it. And then leading ladies take control and play as powerful women and girl characters from Nintendo Switch games. And it's got Samus, Peach, what's her name from the detective-y looking game that came out a little while ago, and Zelda again. And then it's choose your character. So I'm now 2 full screens of scrolling down the page. Games with Mario, games with Zelda, games with Kirby, games with Donkey Kong, because it's getting cut off because it's a scrolling thing. Keep scrolling. Oh, a section on Nintendo Switch too. And then you scroll some more, and finally, after literally halfway down the page, it finally shows you the haul, the treasure trove that is the eShop, the reunion, rediscovering lost love. I love this. I love that and keep in mind, when I say, like, on Monday, there wasn't this much shit there wasn't. They've been pushing it down the page all week. It's like, we are going to stop that motherfucker from looking at the games that came out and talking about them. We are just going to stop him. That is our only goal today. Everything else has gone wrong. We're going to do that. So, if you're wondering how the eShop's getting better, the answer is they are just putting all the garbage in the closet and hoping you don't notice. And that makes me very happy. With the pan and scan when it first started didn't work right. It looked very bad. It was very funny. And there were images that just didn't load right, so they did all kinds of weird icon-y shit. It seems like a lot of stuff's been fixed since then. I'm thrilled. There are still games that don't have icons, though. It's like Attack on Titan 2, Final Battle, which was in the list of anime-style games, doesn't have one. It's great. I love it. I love that. So, yeah, that's how Nintendo's fixing the eShop, and there are no other problems facing them right now. None. And on that, we're going to get to new business. I'm going to start it off with some Xenoblade talk. And Greg, you've been playing Xenoblade as well.
Sure.
I've played 110 hours of Xenoblade Chronicles X. I don't even know how to process that information. That is an absolutely obscene amount of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Considering I've been working. Like, that is nightmarish. Here's the other thing. I just cleared chapter 11. There's 2 more chapters left. And there's a whole bunch of side content that pops up after chapter 12.
Yeah, because it's even longer than the normal version, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So they added
I put 120 into the normal version, so.
Yeah. So they added 2 new characters. Neonel, and I'm blanking on the other one's name. She's a test pilot. Her name is just escaping me at the moment. Neil is a Chlorian, which we only had one of those in the first game. So it's nice to have more information on them. That's pretty fun. I've enjoyed that. She had a nice little quest line. It made Celica's character make more sense, which I've come to the conclusion, they talked about in the past that when Xenoblade Chronicles X started development, it was a game where there was a defined main character. And there may have been a love interest. I just get the feeling that Celica was the one they were setting up for that, because she's the only character with their own theme. It's kind of a hint, because the music was composed first. Kind of a hint. They may have had more intention of her than what she does in the game, which just sits around in a corner with a big giant monster who's her friend. But now I actually get to see them talk, so that's kind of fun. This game is we've talked about it, but this game is such an effective time sink. Because there's always something to do. And the game is very consistent about shoving the thing to do in front of your face. And the thing to do might be big, it might be small, it might be a quest, it might be a mission, it might be an online mission. So the squad mission. So if you're online, there is a series of objectives that is assigned to your squad. I can't tell how big a squad is. It's pretty big. It's everybody online at the same time has those. So if you do some of the objectives, it starts checking them off the list. And so collectively, the whole party, the whole squad, has to clear them in order to get the squad bonuses. So I'll occasionally, I'll click the left stick, which brings up your current objective. I'll press the left or the right button on the D-pad a couple times and see what the current squad goals are. And they show up on the map with the little S icon. If it's you have to go kill 10, of this type of enemy, or collect this shit, or go fight this tyrant. And I'll, every so often, just go and do a bunch of that stuff and let the squad finish off the rest. Because you get pretty good rewards if your squad completes all the objectives. That does not contribute to clearing the story or side content or anything. It is purely a time sink. It accomplishes nothing but giving you more rewards. And I spent most of last night when I was playing this game. I didn't play it that long last night, but I spent most of my time just like bringing the team to the absolute edge of completing the objective, because it'd be like, kill this tyrant 4 times. Well, I can only kill it once. So I did everything but kill the tyrant 3 times and just let the squad finish it off. And they did. And you get an hour every time. And then like we were at like the 20-minute mark when we finished it. And I just went and did it again. And I just did it again. I did it like 3 times. And while they were finishing off the tasks that I could do, I would just go run a mission, because I just finished chapter 11. And so the cadence of this game is there are story missions that you get from Vandom, who's the boss, because every Xenoblade game has a Vandom. He gives you the story mission that advances the chapter. After every chapter, a bunch of what they call normal missions get added. Normal missions are the little green icons. They are usually smaller quests. And every character you meet has a set of affinity missions. I think it's 3 usually. And they unlock based on what chapter you're in and other stuff. But they're on the map as soon as you meet the character, or as soon as you clear the affinity mission before the next one. So like if you've cleared if they have 3, if you've cleared affinity mission 2, affinity mission 3 shows on the map, even if you can't run it yet because you're not in the right chapter. And then in the kiosk, in the Blade command kiosk, there are more missions, additional missions. Some of them are just like, go collect 9 of these things. They're basically randomly generated. Some of them are story missions in disguise. So every chapter, like the clearing the chapter mission might take 30 minutes, maybe takes less. Chapter 11, I was so fucking armed for bear that I showed up and absolutely astroturfed the fuck out of the boss of that chapter. Like, showed up, I used an attack, I one-hit KO'd it, and then it played the cutscene, and I'm like, well, if I hadn't come absolutely loaded up, this probably would have been a tough chapter. But I did. And so, I'm sorry, friend. You cannot stop me. Chapter 11 is a long fight. But I was just like one hit. It's basically like survive X amount of time or wipe out the enemies. You have 8 minutes, and I was done in like 48 seconds. I'm like, oh no, I did it. So I would guess I've spent 97% of my time not playing the main game, not playing the main stories. Like I've explored the whole map. I have planted every probe. I have found most of the hidden areas. There's maybe a couple I haven't found yet. I have completed all of the quests that you can complete up through the completion of chapter 11, except for 1, which I need to do. I just ran out of time this afternoon to do it. And I have gone down the depths of customizing my scale. None of this advances the plot.
Last time I played for about 2 hours, and all I did was just plant probes. So I just walked around, got killed a couple times, ran away from monsters. Yeah. I mean, it's total time sink.
I just hit level 60, which means I can buy a whole new set of scales. I just spent the last 10 hours like fine-tuning the scale I have, but now I can get a better scale. So I'm gonna go get a better scale and give Elma my hand-me-down. And then I'm going to spend like 10 hours tuning that scale, at which point I'll be able to buy another better scale. The cycle never ends. But this is what happened when I played it the first time. Like, I just fucked around. And I got to the boss of the game, and I obliterated him. I mean, in an embarrassing kind of way. Just like, oh, I shouldn't have played this game this much. Like, embarrassing for me, not for him. He is 1s and 0s. I am the person who realizes I have poured so much time into this game. The final boss that's supposed to be challenging was like, oh, it's over. That's kind of anticlimactic. And I'm on the glide path to doing that shit again. One of the things that they changed, besides the new content, which I'll get to that in a minute, is the affinity builds up a lot faster. So I didn't do everybody's affinity quests in the first game. I did a lot of them, but I did a lot of it post game because it just takes forever to make characters like you. So like every character has up to 4 hearts, I think, of how much they can like you. Maybe it's 5, but you need at least 4 to do their last affinity mission. And you get it by them being in the party. You get it from some of the interactions you have with other characters, how you respond to them. You get it from leveling up or winning in battle or completing missions and stuff. It's really hard to just grind for it. In this game, you can make people like you in like an hour, and you can max that shit out. An hour of just fucking around. They really tuned it up. And that makes it so I've been able to see all the affinity stuff as it's happening. So I get to see all the angles of the party. And I think they did that because they added those 2 new characters and they wanted to make sure you had the chance to experience their new content. Because one of them, Neil, the other Chlorian that you meet, gives a bunch of context on that species. One of the neat things about Xenoblade X is you meet all these alien races as you go, and they've all got their thing, and you see how they change New LA by their presence, and you get to kind of like learn about their thing and their world building. But because there was only 1 clue in the entire game, that didn't really happen. Now there's 2, and the other one actually talks to you like a human being and tells you what's going on. It also opens up all kinds of weird shit based on the plot of this game where it's like, wait a minute. And one of the characters just straight up says it. That's the other thing. I'm also doing all the heart-to-hearts. I didn't really do those either because I had the same problem. You had to have maxed out their affinity to get them all. And it's kind of a pain in the ass because it'll be like, they'll only do it if you have cat set. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, I mean, there's a mission later in the game where you rescue a robot dog. It's a dog, it's a robot, because it was for the psychological benefit of the crew on board the ship to have robotic pets, but not real pets, so you don't have to feed them. I'm serious. And so, like, you go rescue a dog that's gone wild, and now you can have a dog. And how you set the dog is by in the customization of your barracks menu. So your choices are like, what art do you want on the wall? What colors do you want the walls and surfaces to be? And what pet do you want? And you have a variety of dog and cat to choose from as you run missions to unlock them. And there are a bunch of affinity missions that are just like, will only show up if dog. So you have to go back to the barracks, change your pet to a dog, and then Elmo will be out there talking to, or actually Elmo was the cat. Elmo will be out there talking to a cat in the park. And your choices when and you'll get a little conversation about why she values pets. Now she had a pet back on Earth. And she asks, what kind of pet are you? And your choices are dog person, cat person, Elmo person. If you pick Elmo person, you get chewed out. It's worth it. Do it. But actually getting to see all of those too does a bunch of like story building. There's a lot of stuff I'm picking up because I'm playing this game a second time and I know where it goes, where I may not have given the writers of this game enough credit for like having a plan. There's a bunch of stuff that's actually really suggestive and really well put out and nice little subtle hints right up through chapter 11, which is pretty much like right before the last twist. The last twist is the last chapter has twists in it too, but the last like, what the fuck twist is 12 and 13. And there's a hint on both of those in 11. It's like super late. I'm like, wow, really? Wow. Okay. That I just didn't pick up the first time I played the game. Because why would you? And I like that. I like that there's a bunch of things here that reward you if you're playing it again. I will say, some of the new quests, there's a few. Most of them don't involve the characters, beyond the ones that are in the affinity party. So the ones who are there. But a couple of them do. And, they had to recast Vandom for some reason. I don't know why, but they did. And, they did not even try. The voice actor sounds nothing alike to the one that's in there, to the point where it's jarring, especially because I had just finished a cutscene with him in it. And then we got him again with a completely different voice who I'm not convinced ever heard the first voice actor. It's amazing. But yeah, I really like it. I really enjoy this game. It is such a fascinating time sink because you can do things like modify your builds of your character and your skills to unfathomable degree. You can farm better equipment. You can farm upgrades to make equipment that you already have even better. There's like a meta to the meta to the meta of fighting the world boss, which is only available online and is just fucking impossible. I beat the Telethia the other day. Well, I didn't beat him. I beat him twice. He respawns. I did not. Some people can apparently like take him out like 9 times in the time limit. I was just happy to take him out once and not get plastered into the ground. I'll take it. But it's the global nemesis battles. That's it. They're really hard. But I'm just kind of fascinated that this game, for almost 10 years, I've come on this show and had a meme around. I swear to God, if they make me replay this game to see what the actual ending of it is, I'm going to be so mad. And when they showed this game and they're like, oh, and it's got more content after the ending, I was top percentage mad. But I would have been so much more mad if I had replayed this game. Like if I had replayed it back in like 2021, I just said like, well, we're never going to get there. We're never going to get there. It's never going to happen. And I'm wrong. There are 4 new characters. I am really enjoying like seeing stuff that I didn't see the first time because there's so much content in this game. It's very easy to miss stuff. I still have 1 character I haven't found. I don't know how. The game tells me it's not possible for me to have found them yet. So that's neat. There's a bunch of little quality of life things that are better. I miss the gamepad because I can just tap and go, but I've gotten used to it. They made changes to make infinite overdrive. So overdrive. All right. So in battle, you can charge up a meter and you can spend that meter to go into what's called overdrive. And that's in overdrive, all your skills cool down faster. There's a combo meter that makes damage go up based on how much you've built up that meter. It maxes out at 100, which I think is like 10 times damage, something crazy like that. And you could do things to increase the amount of time on the meter. They've made that easier a couple different ways, including the ability to fire a skill when it's not cooled down yet. That's limited use per battle, but it's very useful for trying to keep overdrive going. And my build is just better suited for it this game. I'm able to keep overdrive going. I've kept overdrive going for 9 minutes straight once in a base, in a ganglion base that I was not high enough level to beat. And I just tore that base apart for 9 straight minutes until there was nobody left alive. My party had been dead for like 8 of those minutes. It was glorious. It was like I'm just running my set. John, I would equate it to playing like World of Warcraft. I just had my set, my combo moves.
Yep.
Like here's my sequence of moves I'm going to fire, and here's the timing on them, and if I do that, I can keep this going forever.
Mm-hmm.
I could just keep it going. And I did for 9 minutes, and I killed every single motherfucker in that base. Every last one of them, including a boss that was 20 levels higher than me. Fuck them all. I like though, there is a lot of content in this game that I didn't pick up on before, which is people commenting on the fact that one party seems to be doing goddamned everything. Including at one point the director general telling you, no, you can't have that mission because everybody thinks you all take all the good missions. And I'm like, well, fuck you too. But there's stuff I'm missing. There's stuff I remember from my first playthrough, despite being extremely exhaustive, that I haven't found yet. A good example is I haven't found the quest line that includes the phrase, move out, deploy that pizza. This is a very stupid quest line that is long. It's multiple missions long, and I have not run into it yet, and I do not know why. I do not know how I have missed it. I'm fascinated by this. I'm looking for it. I'm actively pursuing Bomb Pizza, I believe is what the name of the mission is. Because it deals with the fact the Manon have become addicted to pizza. It's stupid, but it's very fun. I would say I'm at like 80% of the world. So I talked about there's always things to do. Like if you pull up one of the views of the map, there's one where it splits the entire map into hexagons. And it highlights them if you've completed the thing in that hexagon, because every single hexagon in the game has a thing. I'm in the 80+% for the whole world of having cleared them all. And a lot of them are like, that are left, they're like, beat this tyrant, it's level 90. And I'm like, not today. That's not happening. But like, some of them are just like, hey, there's a piece of debris in this hex, go find it. And we don't have any more hints than that. And so you just have to kind of just bang around that hex for a while and go see if you can find it. And like, I'm at like the 80% mark at this point for that. That's crazy. That's crazy. There's always stuff you can do in this game. And I suspect even after you beat the game and you've cleared every mission, there's nothing left. You've scraped every surface of content. You're 100% exploration. They're still like trying to min-max the damage on your skull so you can go fight the global nemesis. Because in the first release of this game on Wii U, there were people who could one-shot the global nemesis, which I have never even taken down once. So like, yeah, there's stuff even there. It's fascinating. Like, there are moments, there are very thin moments where this game is an MMO. And like in the global nemesis fights, you can end up fighting with other players. You see other players around. Like, I'll climb up this mountain and I'll be at the very top of the world and this beautiful view. It's stunning. You made it up there. It's a real pain in the ass unless you have a skill that can fly. It kind of takes some of the charm out of that. But if you don't have it, it's stunning. And you get up there and there's an NPC of an actual player just sitting there on the top of the mountain waving at you. And it's like, why? Why did you put them here? Why did you put them here? I have had people in our Discord say they ran into my character in town, just like standing around, and they could because you can recruit other players' characters into your party to run a mission, no matter what their level is. So if you run into somebody who's like a level 90 and you're just sick to shit of dealing with this tyrant, bring them along for the party because that fight's gonna go real quick. To quote the song Quick Quick with the Guns and Cannons, as the great lyricist of this game so eloquently included. Yeah, I'm just fascinated by my ability to just find stuff in this game. Maybe not even new content. Maybe content that was there before, but I just missed it because there's so much. Or new content that's sort of woven in where I'm like, is this new? Like, I wasn't sure if Gajarg was new, but yeah, he is new. So that's neat. Like, he was in the game, but apparently he wasn't playable. That's cool. He's fun. I like having him around. He's a cat person. And one of his heart-to-hearts, he runs into your house cat and wants you to describe what cats are. And if you say they're a pet, I think he gets sad. And if you say they're noble hunters of vermin, he gets very excited about it. This game is very stupid and fun and silly, and sometimes it's serious. Sometimes it's got really nice storytelling. The world building is kind of unbelievable. I just ran Yelv's mission. If you go back to our spoiler cast, I rant about Yelv's mission for like 20 minutes because it sort of changes a bunch of shit. And I thought maybe I was misremembering. I just saw it right before we started recording. No, I wasn't. I sure as fuck wasn't. To do Yelv's, especially now that it's really easy to get his affinity up, you do have to go find 2 random items in the world with no hints where they are. I just looked them up. It's just like, fuck this. I'm not doing that. But yeah, this game's amazing. This is a truly like dumbfounding game in terms of its scope and its scale. And those are kind of different. It consistently takes away the things that frustrate me, which is like, they'll design a level 30 combat encounter in Noctilum. But where they'll put it, there'll be like 12 level 60s standing around that battle. And if you don't aggro them, everything's fine. But Lynn will pull out her fucking machine gun and shoot everything in the area, and suddenly there's like 8 level 80s mad at you in this level 30 mission. You're gonna die. You're gonna die real quick. And that gets real frustrating. There's one where I had to run that mission like 7 times because it's deep in a cave and you have to fight your way through the whole fucking cave. And those suck and I hate them. But then I get through it and then something else happens. Something stupid happens. And it's just like, oh, okay. I'm good again. I'm good. I'm back to this. Or sometimes it's something as simple as I'm flying my Skell and I have to set it down somewhere. And I end up somewhere I've never been before. Maybe even the first time I played the game, I never landed on this spot. And I had one today where I'm going through Oblivia, which is the one with like the big giant discs and stuff. It's kind of a desert area. And I ended up inside a ravine by accident. Like I literally fell into it. And I found a bunch of stuff there that was pretty cool. And then I flew my Skell back out and landed on the side of a mountain to kind of get my bearings. And I just happened to catch Dawn, which doesn't animate up. It's just got timescales. And it just looked really nice. It just looked really nice. And I could see all the way to Primordia. And I was like, that's pretty fucking cool. This game is just consistently cool and interesting and fun. And it can eat through time in a way that I don't entirely like. Time just disappears. It's very weird. And it's been nice to have. So yeah, like I know I'm not saying anything revolutionary here about this game, but it's kind of special. Like it's kind of amazing this is the second Xenoblade game. Because it kind of has that thing we talked about with the NES games where like the second game would feel like a major departure from the first one. Because structurally it doesn't feel like Xenoblade 1 at all. Like how the areas are built, how the story's told, how the parties are built up, how the world building is done. It all just feels different. In a microcosm, some of the like colony, whatever, I can't remember what the colony number was in Xenoblade 1, where you're rebuilding the colony. Like some of that is how some of the missions work in X, but there's so much more to them than that. And there's so much content that you can see the whole game and just miss. And some of it is absolutely critical to the story they are trying to tell. And they don't care that you can miss it. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them that you missed it. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate that they made this game where it's like you will get, the more you invest into it, the more you will get out of it. And it does deliver on that. Like the more time I give it, the more I explore the little pockets of this game where they've hidden content, the more it feels like I understand the world and the story and the meta narrative and the shit they're trying to not tell you, but they're constantly hinting at. There is a certain amount of this in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom where it feels, especially Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom is a little more explicit with its storytelling. Where it feels like they might have learned, among other lessons they learned from Xenoblade X, that might have been one of them. Is like, let the player find more of the, like, not core plot by their own hand. And experience that. Because I feel like it makes it feel a little more special. A little more bespoke. Like, I found this thing because I wandered around and ran into this random character standing by next to a mountain. And he wants me to help find, because he's a Nopon, he wants me to help find the Sword of Legendariness. Because he's a fucking Nopon. He's useless. And that just spirals for a while. But you learn a lot about Nopon. 2 had a little bit of that as well. But again, it was different. I haven't seen the big new content at the end of the game yet, obviously, because I haven't beaten it. I'm very curious about getting there. I want to see it. I really want to see it. I want them to make another one like this. Like, after 3 and the Future Redeemed, excuse me. I'm good on that style of Xenoblade for a little bit. I would love to see them make another X. Because they're pretty explicit that there are more people out there. Like, it's not hidden. Like, they say it in the opening cinematic. That some of the human life, whatever, restoration project, some of them got away. Not just the one that you're on. Like, they could very easily tell another story somewhere else. And there's enough open angles that they could certainly do that. I I'd like but it doesn't have to be that. A game built like this mechanically, storytelling wise, environment wise, how the characters, I mean, the plot, the cast is enormous. It's even bigger now. And they've all got a little bit of backstory. I mean, it's a different kind of experience that lets you just kill so many hours so quickly with this game that I find it fascinating. Sorry, I spoke way too long.
So it's good, is what you're saying.
Nah, it sucks. It's garbage. What a fucking piece of trash.
Yeah, I mean, this game, it's just like it was before. I was like, all of a sudden, I'm just like, God damn, I've put 120 hours into this thing. I mean, I've said this a million times, but I just devoured this game when I played it the first time through. And really, yeah. I mean, and the thing is too, it's like this game, I kind of view it as just like what I would call a fuck around game, where I can just enjoy just roaming around, looking at the wildlife. Just because the thing is, what always astounds me about this game, even compared to games on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, this game has like better draw distance than all of them. Like it paints a more like kind of convincing, immersive world than games on any other console. And I don't know what it is about it, how they pulled it off, but it's just incredible. I'll just sit there and look at, sit there and watch the sun go down. I'll climb up on something and just look around because you can just see for so long. It's crazy. Yeah, I think this was done on the Wii U is still baffling to me.
Like you could be standing in Noctilum, which is the jungle area, and like get to the top of the trees. Because normally you can't see anything in Noctilum. Noctilum is really scary because it's kind of a survival horror zone because everything is tight. You're in a jungle, like where in Primordia it's mostly open. Noctilum is constantly shit just jumping out and attacking you. They're either dropping from the canopy, they're coming out from behind trees, they're like coming from the air and descending on you with no warning because you couldn't see them through the trees. It's just constant jump scares. It's dark. It's miserable. But you get up there and you climb to the top or you fly to the top and you have the ability to do that. And you just look out. You can see New LA, which is thousands of meters away. You could even see Primordia, which is beyond, not Primordia, Oblivia, which is beyond, it's 2 continents away. You can see the big, like, gear that's sticking out of the ground there. It's faint because it's really far away. It's like, in game scale, it's 10 kilometers according to them. That's the other thing. These continents are only like 6 kilometers. But, they do a nice job of like, there's enough visually distinct things that you can make out the eye catches. Like you can see that, oh, that's that mountain in Primordia. So even though it's far away in low detail and kind of foggy, you could still make it out because it's very distinct looking. And you could see there's tiers of those. Like they build depth in it. So like there's the mountain in Primordia closest to me. Then beyond that is the Oblivia stuff. And like or if you're in Oblivia standing on top of the ring, you can see New LA. You can see down into New LA. You can see across to the jungle. If you look towards Silvalum, you can kind of see the outline, but because it's over the ocean, it's a little bit harder to see. In Oblivia, or not Oblivia, in Calderos, you can't see much anything because it's isolated. It makes the places feel like they're geographically connected versus like a Monster Hunter Worlds, where even then they're connected zones. Like this is a real. We talked about this when you get the scale and you can actually fly out. The mission is literally fly out of New LA, and for the first time you exit New LA without going through a portal, and you realize, oh, New LA really does just exist in the world. It's just there. Like it's not a separate zone. Even the Manon ship, the interior of the Manon ship is there. You can walk into it you can fly your scale up to the Manon ship, land it on the roof, and then walk inside the ship without any loading sequences. Because it's all there. It's all part of the world. And I think that's the trick. It is all part of the world, and they designed their geography in such a way that there are things to observe from a distance that they can make low detail, but are still distinct enough, like the Manon ship hovering above New LA, that you could still make it out from halfway across the world and be like, that's the Manon ship. And it puts everything in a context of like geographically where everything is. Like if I need to get my bearings at any point, I just go to a high point, look around and go, okay, that's that continent's, there's a word for it they use in theme parks. I'm blanking on what it is. But like the things that are meant to catch your eye. That's that. It's very similar sort of design ethos. It's like all the continents have at least one thing that's like the thing you're supposed to see. In Sylvalum, it's that big central mountain that dominates the skyline. In Calderos, it's these big volcanic mountains with weird architecture on them. You can see them from pretty far away. And then from Primordia, it's all those weird ridges and like the floating islands and the city itself. It's neat. It's a neat world that no matter what angle you look at from, there's always something interesting happening.
Yeah, and what I like the most is that it's actually worthwhile to explore. They don't just like give you a big empty world. There's all kinds of stuff and all kinds of nooks and crannies and things that are hidden, and you can just walk around. And also there's kind of like a verticality to it. So there's like the one of the probes that I was trying to put down. I was like, where the hell is this? And so I looked it up, and it's like, okay, you have to go all the way to the south part of the segment. Then you have to go down, and you have to go underground and find this cave, and that's where you place the probe. So
I bet I know which one this is, and I spent forever looking for it.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones. It's very close to the beginning.
Yeah, there's a similar one in Oblivia, I think, and it's a nightmare. Like it took me forever to find it. I'm just wandering around, going, "Where the fuck is this thing?"
Yeah, and it looks like it should be right out in the middle of the grass, like right out in the middle of a huge field.
Yeah, but it's actually underground.
Yep.
There is a mission. This is a really wild one. There's a mission inside a ganglion base on Calderos that is awful because you literally have to fight your way through the whole goddamn base. It's misery. It's absolute misery. If you go back there after completing that mission and after having done a bunch of other missions for a character named Mia, like 4 of them, none of them are on the map. You just have to find her. She tells you where she's going to go next. You just have to look for her or just look it up. If you go back into that cave for whatever reason, there's no reason to go back in that cave because it's miserable. There's a mission there with her waiting for you. Like, I can't imagine somebody finding that organically.
Yeah.
Because you have to leave the cave and then come back. And it took me like 9 minutes to get into the cave the first time, just shooting my way in. And then it's like, I have to go back? I have to go fucking back to find her? God damn it. It's like the amount of stuff that's just jammed in this world is crazy. It's crazy. And the fact that every hex has something in it is kind of impressive. Mm-hmm. So many of them have more than just the thing. It just happens to be, that's the thing that gets you the check mark.
Yeah.
I was fighting a tyrant and another tyrant showed up because it started raining. That was just a bad day for me. It was just a bad luck.
Well, and two, it's, right at the start of the game, you start looking, when you actually start making a concerted effort to try to clear out all these segments and put all the probes down and find all the treasures and stuff, you realize you're like, oh, so that's way, way up there in the sky on that huge rock that I'm not going to be able to get to for probably another 30 or 40 hours. So.
Or 60.
Yeah. Like, it's going to be a while.
And like the game feels different as you get new mobility. Like it feels like a different game now that I can fly, which is interesting.
It's huge. Game changer, but I mean, literally the game feels like you're like, oh my God, it actually makes you want to play. You're like, okay, here we go. Now I can do all of this stuff that I always wanted to do that I've sat here for, like you said, 60 hours. I've sat here and I've wanted to go hit this thing and this thing and this thing. It's like Christmas. You're like, holy crap. Now I can finally do all this, explore all of this cool stuff that
even when you get the scale that can't fly. Mm-hmm. Even when you get the scale that can't fly, like it can jump so much higher than you.
Yeah.
It takes down some of the barriers of things here are scary. I don't want to go near them. It's just like, well, no, I'm not scared anymore. Come at me. I'm going to do this.
Yep.
The game feels different when you get the scale. The game feels different when the scale can fly. And it it's just kind of this constantly evolving thing that sort of matches with the theme of the game itself. I really need to make a concerted effort just to hit the new content. Like I'm being very thorough about clearing out all the quest content as it unlocks, which is why the fact that I haven't found Bomb Pizza yet's freaking me out. But does that mean there's more content that I haven't seen? Am I gonna go look at like a list of missions and go, fuck, there's like 20 I missed somehow? What the shit? But yeah, I will be done next week. But this game's amazing. Mm-hmm. You should play it if you haven't. You really should. It's really exciting and fun and interesting. And the fact that the world is essentially all one big machine, like a clockwork thing that sort of moves against itself. This team did an unbelievable job with this game. Just unbelievable job. Is it as polished as some of the other Xenoblade titles? No. It is decidedly unpolished sometimes. Is it serious all the time? No. I just had a duel over the honor of the cat people species. And, the guy bit his tongue in the middle of the introduction. His serious introduction. And then he spent the rest of it with it typed out like this. Them spelling out him trying to talk that way. It's very stupid. But afterwards, he and I had a big, long conversation about the meaning of honor. So, it's fine. Everything's good. We're buddies now. It's great. I love this stupid game. And I'm like, am I mad they made me replay it to see this end content? I don't know. We'll find out when I get there. But I feel pretty confident that even if there wasn't new content at the end, I'd still be mad at the end of the game because it's awful. But the new stuff they did add, getting to know the characters I have added, getting a little bit more content, making it easier to see all the content that is there. I would still be happy with having played this game. Like I'm in no rush to see the new end game content. Like I thought I would rush to it and then go back and clean up what I wanted to hit, but I'm just having a good time doing everything and just experiencing Mira thoroughly. So yeah. This is a really fucking good game. It's crazy they waited to 2025 to port it to Switch. But I'm glad they finally fucking got around to it. Let's put it that way. And I did actually see a comparison of the faces between the Wii U one and this one, and holy shit, it's night and day. Holy shit. They are so much better in this game. It is not close. So yeah. That's it. I talked way too long. I've talked way too long. Craig, anything else you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean, I also have been playing Xenoblade X, not nearly to the same extent as you. I think I'm probably somewhere in the region of 35 hours on the clock, and there's definitely some kind of flab in that number in terms of just sometimes, because I've been exclusively portably, and a lot of the time it might be while something else is going on, and, sometimes it might just be on the map screen reconfiguring what type of probes or whatever you use, and then you just kind of set it down or whatever. So, yeah, it's probably, that might be overstating it, but, still, not a bad amount of time for me in 3 weeks or whatever, right? That's how long it's been. Yep. I've been enjoying it a lot. I've got to the point where I have the scale, the first scale. So that's obviously kind of a major, milestone in the game. And then I thought, well, at that point, I kind of, put it down a little bit and, attended to our, retroactive game, the Dragon's Trap. So that, I made sure I didn't get caught short there. It felt like a good opportunity to kind of, make sure that got done and then come back, to X. And, since then I've been kind of splitting my time between, taking the scale around areas that I'd previously kind of explored fairly well. And I know there's not like a bunch of dangerous things waiting to, kill me and run my scale insurance down. And yeah, you see, as you already mentioned, like you could do the sort of, hopping thing up the more vertiginous places on a whole new level even with the sort of, the land-bound scale. You can definitely get places you couldn't get to before. So kind of doing some of that, and then also kind of pushing into Silverlum, where there's loads of scary things that would blow up the scale straight away. But if you're on foot, they don't really necessarily notice you.
The Zaydoms.
Yeah, so, you can just kind of, sneak around and, install some probes, do some quest stuff, I mean, you already touched on this and it's something we've talked about in the past, right? There's the environment design, but then in many ways where it really becomes level design is how they populate it with the monsters and how high the level is and how feasible is it to kind of weave your way, what kind of path that kind of drives you towards finding that's viable of like, yeah, I can battle these things and survive. I have to avoid these other things. And, yes, it's a high wire act. It can go wrong. Certainly, I mean, I've had some hilarious bits where you're trying to just sprint away and survive because, you kind of like, okay, well, I'm this close to like the next probe or whatever. I just want to be able to, and it was, the closest warp point was quite far away, and I've done well to get this far, but now, I've been rumbled and I've got to go, and you just running and running and running and running, and then you get things like, I was sprinting away, and it keeps going. I guess some of it is, again, because it's a little bit, you've got this 2-scale issue in X, right, that you don't have in other Xenoblade games, where it's like the game exists essentially at 1 scale on foot, but then there's also the scale of the scales, right? So sometimes when you're running away from stuff on foot, it just feels like it goes forever. But I guess some of that is because, you're not covering that much ground. If you were fleeing it from a scale, you're covering the ground way faster. So it's, it's just the reality of that kind of, difference.
And it depends It depends on the enemy too, because some will hunt you for a very long distance.
Yeah, they're just more aggro and more deadly, or whatever their numerical level is. But like one time I was doing this, and it's just like I discovered one of those like scenic landmark secret things, and just ran right past it and had no idea what it actually is. Oh, I would like to see that. Oh well. So I've just got to keep going. It's so stupid. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. Just I'll be at it for a very long time. It is alarming, the thought of how long it's going to take to actually see that new. I mean, I've seen some of the new stuff that's weaved in that you already mentioned. The new Skell pilot. The second of that alien species that there was only one of before. Like, I've seen that. So it's not like everything is backloaded that's new. And
I like that they bring them in early-ish just so you get a taste of the new content.
Yeah, it seems wise, just for people, maybe some of the people that had more of a like ironclad commitment to like, I want to sprint to the finish. But it's like, I can't imagine I'd want to do that, because I think it'd be too difficult with being underpowered if I tried that. I think I don't know whether I've got enough mastery of the game systems to be able to power through in that way. I think it's going to be very much leveraged on just, I've explored too much of the world to not be able to do this, essentially. I'm pretty sure that's how it went, nearly 10 years ago. It was just, I've installed all the probes and earning all this money and all this kind of, leveled everyone up, and it's just, I can't actually, like, fail at this point.
You mentioned it. Silverlum's kind of an interesting experience there, because it feels like they expect you to have the skill when you get there the first time, because it is quite hard to get to on foot.
Yeah, I kind of I know some of it was just memory or whatever, but it was kind of like, you know what, I reached a point where it's like I could maybe, felt like I'd pushed about as far as I could into the other, to Noctilum and Oblivion, right. That it felt like maybe I should start doing that, but it's like I'm close to getting the skill now. so I'll get it. And then I did get it, and then you get there, and it's like, oh Christ, I can't really use this thing.
It feels like they deliberately set up that continent to be like, aha, you got the scale, fuck you.
You think, yeah, you think it is, because it is, again, it is empowering, it is liberating in the ways that we've described, but you, especially with that first, scell, you also quickly run into certain realities of it as well, the limitations of it quite fast.
And it pisses off everything on that fucking continent.
Yeah, that's
everything
the thing. Things that
mad.
weren't aggro before because they're gigantic and you're like a gnat. Now they will mind that you're milling around them or racing past them or whatever.
And they're like level 60 and have lasers that shoot halfway across the continent just to fuck you up. It's misery. It's absolute misery.
But I guess like I said, it's for this game at this time, it's working really well, and I'll certainly be at it for a very long time yet. I would have thought might be able to get my sort of what is becoming a bit of an annual tradition of like sinking a whole bunch of time into a Xenoblade game when the draft is on in a few weeks. That might accelerate things a bit, but otherwise, I think it's going to be a while, and that's fine. We've got till certainly with June with the Switch 2 launch and stuff. I'm perfectly happy for it to take up plenty of time between now and then. And on that note, I will say quickly that I was able to secure a pre-order for the Switch 2. That
Bastard.
Was actually quite painless over here.
Oh, that's good.
The whole system with people who've got a Nintendo account and the Switch Online subscription, and you've played this many hours or whatever. I got the email, the first email saying I was eligible to be invited pretty soon after the Direct, and then the email invite came in on time, went to the My Nintendo store, did the pre-order, and that was that. I do understand some people who have every reason to believe they should be eligible did not get such invites, so I don't know what's going on there.
I have heard that as well. I wonder if it was a prioritization thing. If behind the scenes there was some kind of matrix they used to prioritize.
Among the people who are eligible, there's still some sort of priority order. I don't know. Maybe just pure luck. Could easily be that, but there you go.
On the US site, which we'll get to this later, I suppose, they basically said, tell us you're interested. So we didn't get the email saying like, hey, you're qualified. I went to the website and they logged into my account and they told me there that I was qualified. And I said, I would like to register my intent. I did that pretty much within 10 minutes, that site going live. And they basically said that people would be given the offer in the order they registered their intent.
Yep.
So like, if and when that ever comes to pass, I'll be in good shape.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you were able to get a reserve on one. I'm a little torn about pre-ordering through Nintendo because it means I definitely won't get it the day of. I won't be able to just drive to Best Buy and pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Best Buy is my ideal. That's what I'm. Yeah, because I mean it's a 5-minute drive from my place, so I could.
Yeah, with regard to that, they have a little FAQ on the My Nintendo store here that says about like with the shipping and stuff, and they are essentially pledging in that to try and get it there on launch on the 5th. Whether that's going to pan out, I have no idea. But I will say I have bought stuff from the My Nintendo store over here before, and not usually paid for express shipping, just like the kind of standard shipping that might be, there's no extra cost if the order's over a certain volume, that kind of shipping. And it's usually been quite prompt, but obviously this is a little bit different, right? It's a bit of a different proposition. So it may be that when we get to, because it is a Thursday, isn't it? The 5th. So it may be, we might have some of that exciting, if I'm remembering correctly, 2011 style, I've had the 3DS for a few hours today, and let me share you my deep impressions of it.
Yeah. Well, the Switch one where it was just us recording the episode I referred to as the most useless episode of RFN because I was going to pick up my Switch after we recorded it.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
At the absolute nadir of the Wii U. And it was like, well, we really have nothing to talk about. And in 2 hours, I'll have a Switch, but we're recording it today because we do things by a process.
Like I said, I feel pretty fortunate that it's, on multiple levels, I guess, that, it's worked out to this point that, the pre-orders there. But you never know how well these things are, going to go in practice because it's a, pretty big logistical kind of event, isn't it? This kind of product launch.
Well, it's new for them too because they've never really sold consoles directly. So
that's right. There was no such option back 8 years ago. No, I'm trying to remember which online retailer I ended up using, which got it here pretty fast. I think it was probably like the day after or something. It was good, in that regard. But no, it's different. Like I said, I've used it, in the lifetime of the Switch, that particular store, and it's been pretty reliable. I haven't had any complaints. So not that I've used it that often because a lot of the stuff I get is digital, obviously, but there's certain occasions and no complaints.
I do think my Series X showed up on launch day. I think it was delivered in the afternoon of launch day. Because I was working from home that day. Actually, I might be working from home that year.
It was 20, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I remember it showed up because I think, John, yours came the day after, and so I just sent you a bunch of pictures flexing at you.
Yeah.
That I had it. But yeah, I agree. Like Best Buy being my ideal because they'll do a midnight launch. I can go get it and then forget that I have to work the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But like getting it in the mail on Friday wouldn't be so bad. Getting it on Monday would suck.
Yeah, you'd like to have that weekend.
That's the other thing though, and I have to remind my European friends about this sometimes. Logistics are a different animal altogether between Europe and North America. The distance between I think it was Edinburgh and Berlin by road, so if you were to drive it, is only about 2/3 of the U.S. East Coast. Not even leaving the coastline. It's like Boston to North Carolina. It's like the scale's just different. Just is. So yeah, I don't know. But if there is a certain bird in the hand thing here, which we'll get to again, because right now I do not have a bird in the hand. No one does.
Yeah, anyway, for the record, I did go, as you might expect, with the Mario Kart bundle because it's just. I mean, if you have any interest in the game at all, it's the value is clear, and I did also. It's bloody expensive, so I was a little bit at pains to do it, but I did go with the GameCube controller, the wireless one. Because, well, the one thing that the OLED has brought into play for me is playing tabletop a lot more. Because, first of all, because the stand actually is, a functioning stand, unlike the one on the original Switch. And also the screen is just bigger and better. Right, so, I didn't really do a lot of that for, kind of games before that. I mean, there was the odd thing early on, messing around with snipper clips or something. But just for, single player stuff or whatever, didn't really, use it with the initial model. But since getting in the couple of years with the OLED, I've got to say, it's quite nice to play some of the retro games. I mean, I've got stuff, that I can put on the Switch to have a D-pad, that functions but still, it's never quite as comfy or as sort of familiar as being able to use the Super Nintendo controller, for instance, or whatever. So the thought of sort of now this screen is going to be way bigger again, is way bigger.
Oh yeah,
and
bigger.
Not OLED, sadly, but seems like from the hands-on impressions and stuff that it still presents a good image, and in some ways it will be better, for certain games with the HDR implementation and stuff. But the thought that that this is something I might actually do is kind of do tabletop with the GameCube controller, because again, certain GameCube games, you might be glad to not be using the GameCube controller, like where the right stick being weird is a problem, or, the shoulder buttons being weird might be a problem. But then there's other games where it's like, well, yeah, but it was designed around that layout. And it was,
right.
Or indeed, the functionality of those buttons, with the shoulder buttons and stuff. So, yeah, I thought, like, this is expensive, but I do want it. So I guess I'm going to have to throw that in. And it's another one of those things I think that's exclusive to my Nintendo, isn't it? That particular controller. Whereas stuff like the new Pro controller or anything to do with the Joy-Con, I mean, everyone's going to have those. And indeed, like the SD Express stuff and all that. So I think they can wait, the other stuff, potentially.
Yeah, especially since you can use the original Pro controller with it. That's why I thought the same thing.
I have a Pro controller. I mean, I like the idea. I like the idea of this new Pro controller having the headphone jack. If I do kind of play it on TV a bit more this time, which I might well, because like it's going to look a lot better on TV. A lot of the stuff on the original Switch is kind of, it's difficult to say, oh, you know what, I should really like make the effort to like settle down in front of the TV and put some hours in on that, when it doesn't even necessarily scale that well to the bigger screen a lot of the time, whereas presumably, Switch 2 experiences will. So yeah, I think that's something I may well get eventually, but it's just, I don't know that it's going to be like a must early on. And so you can kind of bide your time, and they might even wait until they do some like, game tie-in, like, variant where they have some graphics on it or something that look nice. I mean, it's not an immediate need.
I might get it. I did see a story that, because SD Express, we talked about it last week, really isn't used by anything. There is now, I would say, pretty verifiable reporting that Nintendo was the company it was developed in conjunction with. So Samsung owns the SD format? I can't remember now. Toshiba? So one of them owns it.
Well, Samsung certainly has one of the branded cards. They had two. They had the SanDisk and Samsung from the My Nintendo store. It was like pushing those on you. It's like, do you want to buy one of these with your system? Again, I didn't go for one of those right now just because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's significant. It would double the storage, essentially. But
Panasonic is the leader in that, but there's a bunch of people in it.
Sure. Doubling the storage is not insignificant, but I might prefer to wait until, we'll see how quickly the 256 internal storage fills up with these game sizes, because obviously, yes, it seems a lot compared to what like the internal storage on Switch models was, but these file sizes were expected to be a fair bit larger as well, especially one would think if you go into the realm of like digital third-party games, with these ports from the PS4 generation or even down ports from PS5 games type of thing. They're probably going to be enormous.
Cyberpunk,
yeah, it's like 64. Yeah. Right, so it's like 64 gigabytes. It's fit, and actually that will be like on a game card, like with all the data supposedly in that particular case. I'm sure there'll be plenty of third party games where that is not true, but it gives you an insight into, yes, this is how big the games can be now. And so 256 might not last that long. I don't know. It depends on my choices, of what I end up playing and stuff. But I felt like, it could wait in terms of maybe, like I said, I might prefer a higher capacity, maybe at least the 0.5 terabyte type of size, because I feel like, that even though you're doubling it with the 256, it's not going to last that long. Ultimately, so I might want to wait a bit longer. But that's the thing, as you say, being more of a bespoke format, it's not going to be as cheap, is it? It's not. It's just.
So it's not.
Obviously, it's an advancement on the format. It's a more premium version in general, but you're not going to have as much widespread availability and competition and retailer discounts to help you out either. So it's another area where you're going to be getting squeezed a bit.
In fact, it basically was swept off the marketplace in Japan because this format that nobody bought, because why would you? Because nothing used them, suddenly has a very powerful use, and there are none left on shelves. Oops. So that's cool. Look forward to that. I did actually see one of these things in the wild. I thought about it. But since I literally have nothing that can use it right now, I just figured, I'll wait. Guillaume.
Yeah?
What have you been up to?
I guess very quickly I finished Final Fantasy V.
Yeah,
I think it's one of my least favorite Final Fantasies. I
Really?
know that it's well liked by notably Chris Kohler, who wrote a book about it. But I think that I don't care for the whole job system, which is like the whole point. Like it's supposed to be where the fun is. But I find that it introduces a lot of grinding where, I didn't need more grinding in my games, I suppose. So eventually, I just gave up and I went into the boost section of the options, and I just cranked up, I got job points times 4. And so I managed to just level up my various characters' jobs without too much effort. And it's weird how 5 is a step back to 4 in terms of storytelling and in terms of story writing. It's just not as sophisticated, and it almost looks like a parody of itself, but not in a good way. Like if they were joking about Final Fantasy stories already in 5, I was not really, it was not a successful parody, The villain just falls so flat, X-Death, who eventually, I already forget, his origin story, but he's a tree, maybe? Or he came from a tree? And there's a scene where someone complains about having a splinter, and eventually that splinter just turns into a branch, and so he managed to take get a ride in this character's finger to anyway, I won't spoil it, I guess, but anyway, to where they were, they thought they had defeated him, and now there's this branch that turns into a tree that turns into X-Death, and mwahaha, you didn't know, but I was here all along. It doesn't work. It's very stupid. I couldn't tell you really anything about the characters. They kind of try to give them interesting backgrounds, but they're not especially memorable. I guess if there is something interesting about it is that by the end of the game, your party doesn't really change for most of it, but by the end of the game, you have more female characters than male characters. You've got three women and one guy. So I guess that's interesting. That's a departure from the others, where sometimes there were no female characters at all in your party. There is a character who is a princess who this might sound familiar. A princess who disguised herself as a pirate.
What?
Yeah. So, but in this case, she does it in a way where they don't initially know that she's a woman, and so there's a very funny scene where they see her sleeping and find her incredibly cute, and so the males in the party just get these little heart icons over their heads, and they're just why am I swooning over this dude? Ha ha ha, and then eventually it's revealed that it's a woman who's very tomboyish and is not comfortable with wearing female clothing. So of course I guess one of the achievements of the game is like all the different sprites that your 4 characters in your party get for the different jobs. You know, like they get costumes. It's very cute. But for that character, like she gets the bikinis, you know, when for some of the jobs where there's that gender split between what they look like. And so it kind of reminded me of the character Anne in Persona 5, whose whole story was about how she doesn't like being objectified and gawked at and like having to wear skimpy outfits. And the game was like, you know, like that was the text of the story, but then all the bonuses, like the pre-order bonuses, or like the bonus costumes or whatever, were all her in very revealing outfits. So there's kind of a clash there in terms of the story that the game is telling and what the game ends up doing to these characters. So I don't know. It's only mildly interesting. I just I guess that's it for Final Fantasy V. I think I enjoyed playing it less than 3, which also has a job system. First, because it's at least like 3 times as long. So I didn't enjoy that.
Oh.
And also because the 3 didn't force you to level up a job completely to wring every benefit out of it, whereas this game wants you to get to the end of a job's path so that you get like this bonus for when you go back to the either mimic or freelancer class. Then like you get these bonus stats if you fully powered up like the other job classes. 3 doesn't do that, so it's less about, you know, grinding than 5 is. So yeah, I didn't love it, and I've started 6, but I can probably wait before talking about that. But it's so much better. I personally, I'm more of a Chrono Trigger fan, but yeah, Final Fantasy VI is very good stuff, and we're back to having much more sophisticated storytelling, and so I guess I'll talk about that in the future. But I guess the main thing this week is that I ordered several weeks ago now. It took a while to get here. A Playdate. So it's that little, you know, yellow handheld that came out maybe like 3 years ago or something. I didn't even realize I was this late to the party.
With the crank.
And it's with a crank. And so, yeah, I received that, and I don't know, like if it was, how do you call that, shopping therapy or something? But yeah, like I think that like I was always kind of curious about it, but then the company that makes it, Panic, said online on social media that basically we had until April 6th or something to order it before a price increase, because they're you know, someone
the costs are going up.
Yeah, basically. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be a fool who ends up paying more than he has to for this, so I ordered it, and now I'm playing games with a crank. It's an interesting little toy. I guess it's kind of nice sometimes to just, you know, get yourself something that's completely useless that you can play around with. It's I don't know. It's cute. I got the a cover with it that looks like a pizza box. So that's pretty funny. And so if you remember, this system came with a season of games. 2 games sent to you every 2 weeks, every week. And I think that you get 24 in the end. So what you can do now, I'm not sure if it was always the case, but you can go into settings and you can say like, fuck that shit. Send me all the games at once. But I decided against that because the first 2 games that I got were Whitewater Wipeout and Casual Birder. Casual Birder is this kind of maybe a little bit more substantial game where you're walking around in this town, and you're there are certain mechanics where you have to use the crank to focus your shot, and you're trying to take these pictures of the birds that you can that fly around on the screens. So it's pretty challenging, but there's a little bit of an adventure element to it. But Whitewater Wipeout is just this surfing game where you're trying to do stunts as much as you can, and as you're moving away from the, I don't know how you call that, the wave that's kind of folding back on itself, like if you touch that, basically, like you can't really do flips anymore. So, like you crash. So initially I was more drawn to Casual Burner, and Whitewater Wipeout, like it took me at least like 8 minutes to fully get used to the crank and how, exactly how to land my tricks on my surfboard. And I feel like if I had access to the 24 games all at once, I might not have given this game the 8 minutes that it required of me. So yeah, I think that I'm just going to keep like this pace of like 2 games a week so that I can at least, like have the opportunity to spend more time on it before I'm just distracted. Yeah, exactly. Instead of just immediately like, you know what, I'm not feeling this, I'm going to try the next one. And then like you might never come back to Whitewater Wipeout, which is probably my favorite of the bunch so far. So I got this game, the system on Sunday, and then immediately on Monday they sent me 2 more games. So it's based on, like the new games release on the Monday. It's not like a week after you've entered your account or whatever it is. So I ended up having 4 games pretty quickly, and so I've got Boogie Loops, which is a music loop creation app, I suppose. That I don't think I'm going to spend much time on at all, because I'm not a music person, and it seems a little bit more it seems a little bit too featured to be welcoming for someone like me. So I'm too intimidated. I skip it. And the fourth one is, I should have looked this up before I started talking about it. What's this guy's name? Takeshi? The creator of Katamari Damacy.
Oh.
Do you know who I'm...
I know you're talking about. I can actually see his face, but I can't think of his name.
Katamari Damacy creator.
Keita, right? Keita Takahashi? Is that it?
Keita Takahashi. All right, yes. So it's it's a game by him. It's very simple. It's this little dude. It's called Time Travel Adventure, and it's this little dude who's sleeping, and he wakes up. The clock shows 3. Right before that, you get a scene where like there's a letter that as you crank the crank, like the letter comes out of the envelope, and it says like date time 3 in the park or whatever. So you're sleeping, so your nose bubble pops, and it's right on the dot. So you're trying to make it to the park outside your house to get on the state. But the music, the time passes very quickly, and what you're trying to do is basically you can only crank forward and backwards, and that makes time pass forward or backwards for your little guy. But there are obstacles that are in the way that are not, will not rewind with you as you rewind your character, right? So basically, it's just about figuring very simple puzzles, and eventually it turns more into actually what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of having the skills to time things exactly right so that you can avoid these obstacles as you go to the end of the level, to your date, who invariably like kicks you in the nuts or punches you to bits, or
nice.
At some point, like there was a suplex. It was a suplex. How do you pronounce that?
It's suplex.
suplex. Yeah, she suplexes you. Like it's so that's pretty entertaining. But like the game is entirely about like, okay, there's these little obstacles. Crank forward, like you see on your way to the park, like your character decides to bend over and smell a flower. Okay, and then you keep cranking and like he goes past the flower, but then there's a bird that comes from the front, so you need to go backwards, and like the bird is going to hit your face, so you want to be smelling the flower, you know, you want the character bent over so that the bird goes over your head, and then it's safe for you to crank forward again and go see your date who, you know, slaps you in the face. And then it's like the next stage, and then there might be like a pig running towards you, but like maybe you stopped at a table with a cup of coffee on the way, and like maybe there was like a bird that you avoided as you know, like the character bent their head down a little bit to sip the coffee, but then they actually kind of like jump on top of the table as you move forward once they finish their coffee. So that is how you avoid the pig or the little poop thing that comes toward you, because of course this is a Keita Takahashi game, so there are little, you know, poop spirals sometimes to avoid or to whatever. So yeah, like it's dumb, it's stupid. Like eventually, I don't think that this time travel adventure thing is my favorite. You know, it's not my favorite Keita joint, but it's fun enough. And like this is the kind of stupid thing that you just pick up and you play for a few minutes, and then you're like, okay, that's enough of that, and then you put it back. And I probably, you know, it's probably entirely too expensive for what it is, which is just kind of like a little time waster. But at the same time, I don't know. My life is not worse for having bought this. It's not measurably better either, but it is a nice little distraction at a time when I guess like a lot of us can use a little distraction. So,
I mean, how does the hardware
know, why
feel?
not?
Is it like is the crank fragile? Do you think it would break off or?
No, it seems very it's very smartly made. It seems to be pretty solid. Sometimes like you have to turn the crank very fast, and like I don't feel like, oh shit, like I'm gonna wear this out before you know, the end of the year. It seems no, it's very well made. The cover thing snaps magnetically, like it's very solid, and yeah, like the whole thing feels like quality, I would say. The thing that I'm a little bit surprised by, I should have maybe looked into it more, is that the screen is black and white. It's LCD. It's also not front lit or backlit. There's no lighting at all. So this is like, we're back to like the Game Boy days here. Yeah, it's very high contrast, more than like a Game Boy probably, but that doesn't mean that you can play it in the dark. You know, it just means that like it's not too bad under a normal ceiling light. So that's good, I guess. So we're not back in like the early days of the GBA here, where you couldn't make out Circle of the Moon on your very, very dark GBA screen. But yeah, it's something to take into consideration. Other than that, just like the little things that I felt were weird, like the documentation doesn't tell you how to turn the thing off. Like by default, you just put it in sleep mode, and the sleep mode shows a clock and the charge and the date, and it's like, well, I don't need this. So, like, and most of the time I don't see it because the cover is on it anyway. So I kind of wish that I could turn that off completely. You just hold down the power button for a bit to turn it off. It's not that complicated. But then warming it up again, turning it back on again takes a while if you do that. And yeah, like it's very minimalist in that. You get a D-pad, you get the B and A button, you get the crank, and you get, the power button and one menu button, which you use to exit the game that you're in and go back to the game selection screen. like the home screen rather, you can take a screenshot. I haven't done that before. And it's also where you control the volume. So there are no dedicated volume buttons or anything. No slider, no nothing. You have to go press that button and then press left and right on volume to turn the volume up or down. And there are little shortcuts apparently that the documentation doesn't really tell you. I had to look it up online, but you can hold down the home button and press left and right for a quick way to turn the volume up or down. So that's a little bit less than ideal, but I guess if that's what they needed to do to make the thing feel more solid and less like repair, needing damage prone or whatever it is, like, okay, sure, I guess it's a fine compromise. But like, it seems overall pretty solidly built. I'm not worried about this thing at all. It's just again, very minimalist. I think I spot a mic at the bottom. I haven't seen any games that use that yet. Maybe that music loop thing use that. It's got one speaker on the side, and there is a 3.5 millimeter thing for headphones. That's it. Like,
nice.
It's very simple. So yeah, I guess I might, if I find a particularly interesting game in the next few weeks, I'll talk about it. But otherwise, it's not something that I'm crazy about, that I'm playing obsessively, for hours and hours. It's just a fun little toy thing. So I'm probably not going to discuss it a ton. So
cool.
That's it for my new business.
Cool. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other stuff. Stay tuned. We are back. A couple things in this segment. First off, we're going to kick it off. We're going to remind you we have our retroactive for Monster Boy and the Dragon's Trap for Switch. The plan is to do that next week. So get your comments in before Thursday, the 17th. If you want us to try to use them, there is a thread in the Discord. You can also email them into rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You can send your comments as well. There is a remote possibility that we might push that one, because I haven't had a chance to really start it yet, but the plan isn't to, so get them in. If you want to have any chance to participate in this retroactive. But we're going to start this segment off with the elephant in the room that we tried to avoid, which is the impact of the announced the same day as the Switch 2 Direct tariffs that were introduced by Donald Trump on using an executive order following a disaster declaration that I'm going to say of dubious value, but that basically there was an expectation that he was going to pull something in this space. The numbers are bewildering. I'm not going to get into too much detail about it. I had I spent, I would guess, it's 10 hours in the last week thinking about how I wanted to approach this on the show, because I don't really particularly like being political on the show. It doesn't really motivate me to do anything. I don't enjoy it. And I wouldn't do this show for 15 fucking years if I didn't enjoy it. But bewildering is the word that I had to use here, because the numbers just seemed completely impossible. They seemed to be pulled out of thin air. The answer there might be worse than that. But the reality of the situation is, I'm just going to say that Peter Navarro is an excellent example of you can be highly educated and still be a fucking imbecile. And that is all I will say on the matter. He is a convicted felon who should not be listened to for anything, but he is particularly obsequious, and that is a valued trait. Nintendo basically seeing what I would refer to as completely insane 40+% tariffs on markets where they produce Switches, essentially canceled the pre-order plans for North America. That canceled, postponed indefinitely, which is effectively canceling. They said it's not going to affect the date. The expectation is they were trying to see if these were real or not. There was always an expectation that insane numbers might get announced, but then immediately negotiated down so a victory can be declared, because again, these people don't practice like responsible governing. It's about making impact.
Yeah, it's about setting something on fire and then congratulating yourself for putting it out.
Or not even necessarily putting it out, but like preventing it from spreading further. These were suspended for 90 days except for the dick waving with China. Both parties are more than willing to dick wave at each other, so there is there are things going on here. The way that they define these as, quote, reciprocal, both doesn't actually meet the definition of the word reciprocal, which is why the numbers don't make any goddamn sense. But in addition, they based it off trade deficits, but only factoring in physical goods trades. Trade involves goods and services, and the U.S. has an absolutely world-dominating surplus in services when it comes to trade exports, which is to say, like, software services and media and content. The U.S. exports a fucking hegemonistic level of that stuff. Think about the major providers of cloud infrastructure. They're basically, I think 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7 are U.S. companies. Like it is unfathomable level of domination in that space. And so by not factoring that in when using trade deficits to calculate tariffs, which is not what you do, by the way, that's not how that works. But again, I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to have to sit here and explain. I think there's probably an educational conversation we could have that might help people understand how this stuff works, but this isn't the venue, and I don't want to deal with it right now. Like, if y'all want,
even if you understood how tariffs work in reality, like here, we're kind of divorced from that. Like,
well, in a sense, like there are historical parallels, or I'd say historical antecedents to this, where this is how they were used for the objective that is sort of protectionism. But those, generally speaking, either don't work or create political tension between parts of the country that engage in manufacturing and parts that don't. But also, all of them happened at a time when the population of working Americans, at least you took it from the American standpoint, was growing. It's not growing right now. So, that's a problem. That's a problem if that's your objective. Let's put it that way. So there's a lot of things here that are just wrong because, as I said, Peter Navarro could only make a contribution to society if he walked off a tall building. Like, that is the only way he will ever contribute to society in a positive way. So, that's neat. The stand down, which took only 2 days, I suspect is largely a function of the absolute bath the markets took and how the blowback was starting to come back to the White House, because I could tell you, even though they might not be saying it publicly, Republicans in Congress were definitely calling because they know they're going to take a bath in the next elections. That's just how U.S. midterm elections work. The party in power always loses seats, but it's quite likely they were going to lose a lot of seats if the economy went into the absolute tailspin and the and prices shot through the roof at the same time, which is what a tariff would have done. I imagine the 90-day pause that they've instituted is likely going to be done so they can try to negotiate something where they can declare victory.
It's important to note that the tariffs aren't completely gone. The reciprocal tariffs are, which they call reciprocal, but basically the numbers on the tablets that he showed, the tables that he showed, those are suspended for 90 days. But there's a flat
10%.
Yeah, 10%, except for bespoke tariffs for certain sectors for Mexico and Canada and maybe other countries. Notably on certain minerals and on car imports.
Yes, because I can tell you right now, the idea of producing everything domestically doesn't make a lot of sense because the U.S. only has bauxite reserves in Georgia. If you don't know what bauxite is, that's where the world extracts about like 80% of its aluminum, which is kind of an important resource for manufacturing. The U.S. just doesn't have reserves for it. It mostly formed in equatorial regions in the Earth during the Earth's formation, which North America was not at that particular time, the plate. So that there isn't a lot of it here. So, like, providing silicon. Silicon is kind of a tough one. So yeah, there's stuff there that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in a modern production era. It doesn't make sense in globalized production lines. It doesn't really make sense when you don't factor in the fact that the U.S. has a tremendous advantage on trade in, like if you regard this as a national disaster, which is literally what they did, you really have to factor in things like trade in services, because a lot of people work in those services. Like it's kind of a big deal. So yeah, it was bad. It was ill thought out. I suspect they're looking for a come down now because they realize it's going to be real. As I mentioned, Mr. Navarro did do one thing for society. He went on TV and beclowned himself for the entire Monday. One interview after another, just absolutely shit his pants on TV. Now, again, he's an idiot, so that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, that is like that. This has always been true of the Trump world political machine. The biggest sin is to look like an idiot on television, which says a lot. Again, I'm not trying to be political with that statement. That is a known quantity. People inside it say that. If you go on TV and look stupid, that is the biggest sin you can commit. So good job by him. He may have actually helped the cause a little bit. For Nintendo, however, this would have affected their imports because Vietnam and Cambodia is also involved in the production of Switches, is where the U.S. production for Switches is currently being run because they knew there was going to be stuff. Yes.
My question, James, is in terms of the imports,
yes,
it affects stuff that is being brought in. So, in other words, Switch 2 inventory that has already been brought into the U.S.
Correct.
is unaffected.
It is assessed at time of arrival.
Yeah.
So, if you were on a container ship, if you've never actually seen the container ships, I was in Long Beach right around this time last year. And we saw a couple on the horizon. They are fucking massive.
They're gargantuan.
With thousands of units on them. And there are two giant ports, Long Beach and Los Angeles, that have literally grown into each other. Like, they're on the border of the two cities. And so they've actually grown to the point where they meet. And it's like one of the biggest sectors of port in the world. It's massive. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of those ships. And if you recall, there was a long period of time where there was big backups there because there were strikes on the dock workers. There were some other issues that popped up that caused those things to back up. If your ship was waiting to get unloaded, I believe the tariff would have been applied.
Yeah.
After it unloaded. Like, so that it literally at unloading, I believe, is when it counts. It might be when you pull into port, but I think it's on unloading. So yeah, the ones that were already here, which is probably the launch inventory and maybe a little bit beyond that, are fine. I'm sure they're rushing all the ones from Vietnam in as fast as they can because they're back to the 10% number.
Yeah. Now, what I was wondering was why they didn't as soon as the tariffs were rescinded.
Yes.
Why they didn't immediately, just to get ahead of things, say, okay, it was supposed to happen on Wednesday. The pre-order is now open on Friday. Go, right? I can understand they would have to give a heads up to retailers for sure, obviously, so they could prepare their websites or whatever they need to do, retail, whatever.
My guess is they're waiting for guidance, possibly from Tokyo, or from the Vietnamese delegations, because it's a 90-day suspension on these tariffs.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, my guess is they're looking for the 90 days is to find a climb down.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're probably waiting for the consular officials to give them an idea of what's coming so they can figure out what they're going to need to price this thing at the end of the 90-day window.
Yeah.
So there's probably their concern. It's like they're I would guess, I know Japan sent a delegation to DC. I want to say they sent them like last Friday. Like they've been here. Now, Japan's in a kind of interesting situation because they're currently, they have minority governance, which they haven't had in like a million years. So that's fun. The Vietnamese government is effectively a one-party state. So like they don't have to worry about that. But, they are probably not as experienced in playing in this trade space. I would guess they're probably relying on partner countries with whom they have trade deals already to work through some of that stuff. But the Switch 2 isn't really like there's been a move towards moving production lines to Vietnam from China, driven by one, decrease the Chinese population, two, you have to pay more for Chinese employees because quality of life has increased over time. China's population's gotten older. Working with the Chinese government is always fraught. The Vietnamese government might be a little bit more supplicant to outside investment. There's also the potential geopolitics of working with China because there are plenty of potential flashpoints. One of them's called Taiwan. That don't exist with Vietnam. Vietnam's moved politically closer to the United States. It's part of the Southeast Pacific. They're not technically part of the Southeast Pacific Treaty, but military geopolitical alliances with the U.S. is a check on Chinese authority because China is very expansionist in the South China Sea. All that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff sort of pushes odd bedfellows together, including people you fought a war with 50 years ago. But Vietnam is also a major source of U.S. clothing, like major source of U.S. clothing. So like that's kind of the bigger industry that could be impacted here. Like, yeah, it sucks for Switch 2, but like imagine if your family doesn't make a lot of money and you've got kids who constantly need new clothes and clothes suddenly cost 47% more. Tariffs are bad policy for a lot of reasons, but a big one is that it's an incredibly regressive means of collecting income. Because it's a tax based on consumption. Those are inherently regressive. I know what that means for somebody who doesn't follow that. Regressive taxes are taxes that hit people on lower income scales more, whereas a progressive tax tends to scale up based on how much money you make. So if you make a lot of money on an income tax, you have a higher tax bracket. That would be a progressive tax, whereas a regressive tax essentially doesn't do that. But extreme regressive tax would be you actually end up paying more as a percentage of your income because people who make a lot of money don't spend as much of a percentage of their income overall because they get to save more because, again, they made more money. They might buy more expensive things, but as a percentage of their income, more of it gets cashed away. And on a consumption tax, that's not getting taxed. Cool. I already said way more and spent way more time talking about politics than I ever wanted to do in this segment. Maybe you learned something. That would be cool. That'd be great. I'd love that for you. Peter Navarro, if you're listening, go fucking fall in the ocean. That's where all the votes from 2020 are hidden. I promise. Just go cover yourself in chum and go swim with some sharks. They've got them. It'd be great. But from a Nintendo standpoint, this has obviously caused them to have to make some decisions because they can't sell a Switch they can't sell a Switch 2 at $60, $70, $80 losses because of tariffs. Like it's not viable for them.
Yeah, I mean this is the whole thing. I mean, how this affects, companies like Nintendo is that it cuts into your profit margin.
Right, or obliterates it.
Obliterates it. Yeah, like you would effectively be either you pass on the tariff to your customers, right, or you probably sell your product at cost or at a loss, which is, by the way, bad for business.
Oh yeah,
just FYI.
And that flashes to retailers too, who are buying these products from you. Like they have the same equation they have to. Like you pass it to retailers, and retailers have to pass it to customers or eat the loss.
Yes.
So I bought new shoes the other day. I didn't need them yet, but they were on sale, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna buy them because these shoes are produced in Vietnam. So I have them. Hey, they just right to the closet. But I burn through shoes every 3 months. So hey, I was gonna need them eventually, so let's fucking get them now. But companies can't work this way. Like the unknown is the most terrifying thing to a company.
Yeah, it would grind everything to a screeching halt. This is the thing. It affects so much stuff because number one, everything is globalized, right?
Yeah.
The entire economy, the entire manufacturing economy has been outsourced to companies because guess what? Hey, part of capitalism is to do things as cheaply as possible. How does that occur? You offshore all of your manufacturing to places. Yes, as efficiently. Correct. That's actually, it's more accurate. As efficiently as possible.
Because you might not offshore it for efficiency reasons. You might say, I'll eat the cost of the extra price for a reason.
Exactly. And you can't, so you can't, this is so funny to me because it's capitalism and nationalism.
Yeah.
Butting heads.
And they're running into each other.
Yeah, they're running into each other and they cannot coexist, even though, boy, oh boy, certain people sure do want them to coexist.
Well, so. and that's part of the reason I think the come down, or the like, we need to find a come down is happening, because I suspect the phone lines were blowing up of like, you cannot do this. This will be a disaster.
Yeah.
And
so like, it's amazing to me that like seeing this happen in a country that is effectively run by corporations.
Yeah,
and this demolishes corporations.
They thought they were. You only, and this isn't some grand tactics or grand scheme, because you only have to go back to Monday when they're like, no, there won't be a freeze. Why would we do that? This is about making changes. And then on Wednesday, there will be a freeze. Like there was an obvious pivot, and that kind of pivot only happens when you're absolutely getting just hammered.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of a back down. And it's a back down. Like it is. It functionally is. But it was also a necessary back down. Because I'm going to give you a hint. So we effectively, since, I would say World War II, maybe a little bit before then, we've been working in a sort of globalized economy. It's fluctuated how globalized it is. It's grown since then. But the infrastructure to collect these kinds of tariffs is not free. It takes energy to do it. Like one of the things that they changed is they got rid of the de minimis rule, which is saying items under a certain value, you don't have to pay the tariff. The reason you do that is it would cost you more money to collect the fucking thing than you're going to get out of it. Paying agents to collect it, to process it, to do the paperwork is more money than you're actually going to get. De minimis makes a lot of fucking sense. You save money. They got rid of it. I guess to punish drop shippers. Fuck, I don't know. Nothing makes any sense here. But there's no infrastructure to process this level of tariff. Like it doesn't exist. And so as a consequence, there's no one to collect them, or there's not enough staff to collect them. There's not enough personnel to process. There's not enough procedure. Like you just can't make decisions like this and go like, it goes into effect tomorrow, because there's an entire bureaucracy that has to be moved to make this happen. Bureaucracies actually serve a function. They're your experts, despite what's, again, dealing with some people in this very same government seem to believe, like, it's not waste to have somebody whose job it is to audit that people pay their taxes. That's actually a smart investment. They return more than they spend because they catch people who aren't paying their taxes. Go figure.
Yeah, I was reading an article about, monopolies and how, big tech and all these monopolies and people, the government doesn't like monopolies and they want to break them up. It's like, well, if you're dismantling the government, it's going to make it really hard to go after those monopolies, isn't it, guys?
Yeah!
Going to make it really difficult.
Have fun with that investigation. You're going to have to run anti-competitive practices when you fired all the attorneys.
Yep.
Yeah, it is a, this is probably the most political statement I'm going to say. There is a strand of anti-intellectualism that has taken root in certain parts of the American political discourse. It's always been there. I want to be clear. You can find anti-intellectualism all the way back to the founding. Like it has always been there. The form has changed. The volume it has changed. It has gone up. It has gone down. There was a major third party that was effectively nothing but anti-intellectualism in the 1930s and 40s. But like there is, it fundamentally undermines the reality that functionaries, people who make things work and make things go, do have to have like knowledge and experience and an openness to learn and a willingness to question and to be questioned and not to just embrace whatever makes them feel good. And so without like going through the list of clowns and boat shows like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a clown, like that kind of stuff makes you make dumb decisions because you don't trust the experts. You inherently distrust expertise. And so you go the opposite direction of expertise. And I'm not going to say experts always get it right. They definitely don't. But they got a better chance. They got a better chance.
They can probably stop you from getting it catastrophically wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, sometimes experts fuck it up. Yeah, that's true. But they understand that rubella is real. Like, there is a certain there's like a baseline of understanding. And so, while, yes, the Switch is the thing that sort of has kind of, because of the timing, weirdly became the star of the show here, inadvertently, And given the fact that the US price is mathematically kind of the highest in the world before this stuff got announced, they were obviously already factoring it in a little bit, but not enough. The 10% probably...
I think that's an important point to make, isn't it? Because I think they've made public comments about, we hadn't factored in, the
bullshit.
They hadn't factored in. I think this was a decent bit of tightrope walking, but from what I'd seen of it, in terms of they said they hadn't factored in the specific rates that were issued on the same day as the Switch,
right?
Which I am entirely confident they're telling the truth about that.
Oh yeah, because those rates are insane.
Because, how would you have been able to imagine? I mean, it would. I've often you think about the concept of when people are planning for things, and you have your best case scenarios, your worst case scenarios, and sometimes you end up with an outcome outside of that because of a failure of imagination. Right? You thought you could project what the worst case scenario was, but you weren't imaginative enough to think what worse could really be. In this case, I think calling it a failure of imagination is both somewhat accurate, but also a bit harsh, because it would have taken someone with a very powerful imagination to come to those numbers. So I'm sure they're quite, that's truthful enough. What is also, I no doubt, is true is that they've been pricing in the expectation that there would be some kinds of issues, especially, with China, because that's already, been the case. And that's why production moved, has migrated to places like Vietnam, since the Switch, came out 8 years ago, in the first administration, of President Trump, there were tariffs, placed on Chinese goods. And some of that was actually upheld or extended by the Biden administration, and the amount of the share of imports into the US that comes from China has dropped as a result. That has had presumably at least some of the intended effect there, as companies have moved elsewhere, as well as some of the more fundamental factors that you already mentioned, James, where actually it's just, it's more cost favorable to move outside of China.
Or potentially will be in the future if you get on the ground floor.
And these things, when you're talking about, the kind of capital intensive, production, lines and all this kind of stuff, you've got to think about that kind of, the longer term picture. But the point is, I suppose, that I don't doubt for a moment that they've been pricing in some risks on this scale. For instance, even if it's not something that would have a direct effect in some ways, in terms of, somewhere like the UK or other countries in the EU, if you simply have a trade war between the world's two largest economies, it will create inflationary pressures everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Nowhere is safe from this. It will increase inflationary pressure everywhere, and we've already had half a decade nearly now of greater than ordinary inflationary pressure, at least as we define it, kind of for the century so far. So they certainly should have been pricing that in, otherwise they're just being irresponsible, and I don't doubt they were. So that is very much at the heart of why you had those $450 and $500 price points for the Switch 2 in the US, because otherwise, what the other thing that's been going on is the yen's been weakening against the dollar, and the dollar's been strengthening against a lot of stuff. And we might have thought that the US would probably, get a better deal in many ways, because it's the single biggest market. The strength of the currency in a lot of factors, you would think it should have, I certainly was bracing for it to be relatively, worse in the UK and elsewhere, but these factors have changed that. I suppose if we're going to critique Nintendo's handling of it in any way, I would say we talked about it in the reaction to the Direct, that they, pointedly did not have any price information in the video itself, and that seems sensible enough. I suppose the one question one could have is, could they not have decided to hold off on saying pre-orders would happen when that was happening the same day.
Yeah, we knew. It's been on the calendar. Yes, I would agree with that statement.
That to me seems like it's you know, and I'm sure there are so many things that were coordinated with retailers and with all this stuff that would make them loath to do that, but it does seem like perhaps that was something that could have been done that was not, and then it becomes more problematic now. I will say in the notion of them having committed to a price and had a pre-order date, and then you have to walk that back. Mm-hmm. If the price does go up now, depending, and again, you said it last week, and it's the main thing for everyone to keep in mind is like, God knows what it's going to be like 2 days from now, 2 weeks from now, you know, goodness knows. But if they do, if whatever this regime ends up holding long enough that they have to change the price, that is a big problem. It's not only the
huge problem.
It is not merely the problem of the fact that the price is higher and is less affordable for your customers, right? So fewer people will buy them. That is simply gravity, right? That's just completely unavoidable. But the real problem, I say real problem, I mean, that's probably the further problem, shall we say, and perhaps more sort of pervasive in the sense, is that people will be, I feel, more reluctant to buy it, even if they can afford it, because there is that palpable, and it's quite rare in many ways, palpable sense that it is not worth what you're paying for it.
Right.
Because
you just told us
it was literally supposed to be another this is not something that someone has told you based on the cost of the components or the cost of comparable products. This is something that the people making it told you a couple of weeks ago. And now you're telling you have to pay something else. Whatever their political persuasions, whatever their belief on how understandable it is that tariffs have disrupted this and they've had to change it, is really beside the point. The fact is there will be a pervasive perception that this thing ain't worth what you're paying for it, so why the fuck would you? And that is a really big problem. And I believe it will make them extremely reluctant to have to raise that price and probably be willing to, they will try extremely hard to avoid it. Let's say that. But depending on where this goes, they may have no choice, quite simply, but to change it.
The play might be something like, all right, Switch 2 is only available as a bundle. The bundle will change, but you will have to buy a game with it. And it may not be the most desirable game in our lineup. Like, it may not be Donkey Kong. It may be something else. And like, we're going to charge for that to try to eat up. We're going to give away a game essentially. But we're going to effectively raise the price of the console as a consequence. So, like, the console is only available at 400. 400? No,
500.
450 or 500 with Mario.
Yeah, it's only available at
500 is the Mario Kart bundle.
Right. It is only available at 500. But we're not going to put the most desirable game in there anymore. Like, we're going to put something else in there. And we'll just give away that game. We're going to eat the loss of the potential sale of that game. Whereas in Mario Kart, it's the almost certain sale of that game. And we'll try to average it out in the end. It'd probably average it out across the total world population of sold Switches. Like, they are going to spread this cost out a little bit because it's their biggest market. Like, they would gladly sacrifice some sales in Europe to try to get more sales in North America as a percentage.
Well, and also the notion that, the launches and first impressions are very important.
Right.
We've seen it before with 3DS. It's not that long ago, really. Certainly not that many product launches ago for them. That, you can have something that fundamentally, is the successor to something that was very popular. It ended up selling many units, if not, as many as, DS, Wii or Switch. But you have the launch where the price and the seeming kind of tepid nature of the exclusive games that were available in the first so many months that it was available and so forth. And you end up having to, do a price cut and move your software development resources into scramble mode to save the thing. Right. And so, it's as much as there's a lot of things on their side in terms of, I think the pent-up demand for something new from Nintendo and the things that the Switch 2 offers and some of the exclusive things they have shown and so forth, they would be very complacent to assume that you couldn't lastingly weaken or diminish the prospects for the sales of this system if they handle this poorly, or if it goes poorly. And already, some of these things are, kind of imperiling that. I would say, that has become more of a possibility just with the way things have gone in this past week and in the weeks in the run up to launch. So it's not a very enviable position. No. It's really, it is a tightrope that they're going to have to walk now.
And to move on to happier topics, hey, there's also been multiple indicators even before this of a potential for a recessionary dip. Yay. Bad policy will not help that. And again, I mean, look, with the pricing of the system itself, the pricing of the games, for instance, you've got a bit of you can easily look at this both ways, if you like, in the sense that the fact is, with the fact that inflation has been relatively high in the past so many years, we've kind of reached the point that it's quite convenient in a way. Basically, at the time, if you look at the price level in the United States when the Switch launched, and you look at it today, it's basically like, it's 3 has become 4, right? So Switch launched at 300. And then if you apply that to today's price level, it would be 400. Not that far off from what the Switch 2 actually, at the base level is going to launch at. And of course, by the same token, $60 Switch games into, if you've just applied for the rise in the price level that's occurred in the 8 years plus, would be $80 games, which in fact, that is seemingly reserved only for the sort of the most premium games. It would say, we don't know how many, and depending on how things go, it may be more, but certainly what it appears to be at this juncture, and again, they've done less of this in the US, and I think that's been one of the weaknesses of their messaging on this, because they haven't had the experience with it. There's far more variable Switch game pricing in Japan. Right. And just games in general, right? It's just like, RPGs, they cost more, right? You play them for longer. Maybe they have more development time put into them or whatever. So we charge more for those. Like, that is a common thing in Japan. And, even in the UK, Breath of the Wild was a £60 game, not 50, like most games. And Smash Brothers, I think, as well. And then, yes, Tears of the Kingdom, they finally got to the place where that was a $70 game in the US, correct? Yep. It was the first one.
They finally kind of breached that for that particular game. But, in this case, we've got Mario Kart that's at that upper tier of pricing with the $80 in America, right? But DK, which seems to be quite a prestigious Nintendo game, it doesn't seem like it's something that's like some minor kind of, the downloadable game. It's a major retail release. It's probably got some of their prime development assets. We still don't know exactly who. But,
we can make a pretty strong guess, but they won't tell us.
Although I will say, the Treehouse broadcasts that went out in the days after the Direct, I did notice, and I'm sure plenty of people did as well, that the UI and everything has next level games written all over it. That is like Luigi's Mansion font all over that game.
I wondered about that. I was like,
So
I was watching it on a phone. So
could it be a co-development between the Next
definitely.
Level and some of the EPD developers that have been associated with previous 3D Mario platformers? If that were the case, that would actually take some of the where we did predictions. That would take essentially 3 of our predictions and put it in one game. Something Next Level to Next Level Games developed to show off the the graphical prowess of the system, and then a Donkey Kong game and a 3D platformer by the Odyssey. By the Odyssey kind of developer lineage.
I was going to say, those facial expressions are also extremely Next Level games.
Yeah, it does have, that kind of, but then there's other parts that really remind me of Bowser's Fury. Like some of the little cut, like the sort of getting these golden bananas, and very similar to like getting the cat shines and the way it kind of displays that, and like the way the animation plays and stuff. Just like it's kind of. It wouldn't shock me if there's talent from both of those, but I guess you can't say that. Certainly can't say it for sure, and it's a bit of an extrapolation just based on like a font. But I doubt it's a placeholder because that game's coming out quite soon in the grand scheme of things. But the point is, in any event, it's a big game. That is a big, big game for this system, for Nintendo in general, and it's not $80. So, I mean, I would imagine that pending...
And we haven't seen the Mario Kart Direct yet either. So, like, that might give us more indication of why this thing is what it is. Like, because they talked about that in the Treehouse a lot. They're like, you'll see a lot more about what you can do in this world when we do the Mario Kart Direct.
Yeah, no, that is next week. That is really quite soon at hand. So, yeah, that's the point. I mean, I feel like it's possible that the $80 price may be reserved for games that they feel have the most commercial appeal. That maybe they've had the most development time and resources poured into them. That may have ongoing development resources poured into them because they're doing ongoing events and online activities and all that kind of thing. And that is if you're just looking at it in terms of inflation, $80 is the new $60 from 2017. That's just how much prices have got. It might seem kind of a shock because, that from one
That's
generation
10 years ago,
to,
basically.
But in 8 years, with the rate of inflation we've had in the US and elsewhere, it wasn't even as bad in the US as it was a lot of places.
Significantly lower in the US.
It didn't even breach double digits, as I recall.
Nope,
which
never.
is something, people in the UK would love to have been able to say, I can assure you. So, but the point for all that, the fact of the matter is, in that process, a great many people have had their, their spending power very considerably reduced. And, the fact of the matter is, whatever you could say about the real terms adjustment and, in real terms, it's not that different from Switch pricing back then or whatever. It isn't going to make it any more affordable for them. If, again, they've seen, prices go up and their wages have not gone up commensurately. I mean, there's been a certain amount of recovery in wages in various places, since the inflation, came down from its peak, has given a chance for, sort of new pay rounds to, increases to kind of compensate for that. But it doesn't happen so evenly. It depends what industries you're in, the sort of dynamics of those in terms of labor relations and, what's going on in those sectors. And how that relates to the kind of demographics that actually are interested in being an early adopter of a new console like this. That's way beyond my ability to discern, how much the kinds of people that should be interested in buying something like this have had their spending power diminished in the last 8 years, and furthermore, may have it diminished a great deal yet to come, if indeed we are going to have all these inflationary risks coming in because of tariffs. And again, that goes beyond, yes, the US is principally, it's taxing its own citizens that's what a tariff is, but it will affect all of us because it is, this is the two biggest economies in the world we're talking about. There's no escape from that. So again, I mean, you can look at the pricing and say, you see how they got to the numbers. You can see why, it is what it is. And it does, considering what it's offering and all that, I don't think it's some sort of terrible deal or some sort of, act of pure gougery. But at the same time, there is, I think, a risk that it is going to struggle to find that, we've said it before. You would think, barring really severe disruptions associated with the trade stuff, that there would be plenty of people to kind of take up those initial batch of units, right? That is pretty much a given. But it is that second phase after that where can you establish, maintain some sort of momentum where you avoid any potential 3DS style catastrophe, that is, with the kind of position that people are in for money, and the fact that the Switch is still kind of a viable platform by itself, and some of this stuff that they're showing in these directs are Switch games like Kirby and Metroid, and I don't know. There is a real question about how quick the adoption is going to be.
Yeah, and Nintendo needs to make a call because they're not delaying the release date of the console in the US, and also Canada got swept up in the freeze on the pre-orders, presumably because they're coming in through US ports. There's historically lots of great infrastructure reasons to do that. Basically, I mentioned them. The Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach are literally right next to each other, and they are world-scale ports that don't exist elsewhere on Earth. So why would you ship them in? Because there were effectively no tariffs between those countries. So it was fine. Ship them in wherever. It doesn't matter. So that disrupts the supply line going that way. And to Greg's point, even if your country isn't caught up in the mess, if your country is engaging in reciprocal tariffs against the U.S. for its tariff setting, which a lot the EU, for example, has pledged to do, the U.S. does export goods. I mentioned that they export services more, but they export goods. Most of it's food, because the U.S. has more, I believe this is accurate, the U.S. has more farmland than the Roman fucking Empire had. There's a tremendous amount of farmland. And so they export lots of grain-based products, lots of soy products to markets like fucking China, who consume those things, that are going to be hit by this stuff. So maybe it doesn't hit you on the Switch. Maybe it hits you on the price of fucking bread.
Yup.
All these things have ripple effects that are stupid and completely avoidable. But again, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Are we good if we could talk about something else? Anything else? Something stupid? Something fun? I don't care.
Well,
sure.
It's kind of late, so let's be quick.
I don't want to end on
no
this
fun
topic.
allowed.
Fuck you. All right, we're doing the monkey ball question. Greg, would you read the monkey ball question?
Okay, just give me a moment.
I need the monkey ball question.
That sounds pretty serious. The monkey ball question.
By definition, I mean, it is very much so. So, Lord Knott writes, Dear RFN crew, thinking about the discussion of all the guest characters in Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble in episode 920, I'm curious what you think would be an ideal guest character to drop into an existing franchise. And, in honour of the inclusion of Pac-Man in a ball instead of rolling his spherical self around unhindered, tell me the ideal way the guest character would be implemented in the franchise, as well as a way that would be both bewildering and infuriating.
So I pointed this question to, I'm going to refer to him as the both Sega and Monkey Ball lore master GX in the forums, frequent emailer to the show. He sent a few, but the one that I wanted to highlight was he quoted something along the lines of, if you really wanted to highlight Sega history, the answer is obviously you would put the alien in there from the Aliens movies, and what it would eat instead of bananas are colonial marines. Which is dark and terrible, but also perfect, and it really speaks to Sega's history. The true highlights of the Sega universe. Mine, I think, so Sega is more like, so Sega has all these European branches that they recently have kind of not been treating super well. But they just launched 2 Point Museum, which is the sequel to 2 Point Hospital. It actually looks really fun. I've thought about getting it. They've already done the Game Gear in the Monkey Ball. So it's the Game Gear and the Saturn. There is apparently a mod in progress that will make the Game Gear screen cracked, which is accurate. I enjoy that very much. I think they need to make a mod so it's picking up batteries instead of bananas. Because, again, accuracy is the important thing here. I like the idea of it's literally inside the Monkey Ball itself is just the hospital from 2 Point Hospital. So it's just a building. It's just a large building inside the ball. And it rolls around and just rolls over patients who scream as you pick them up. I think that meets our standards of bewildering. It speaks to Sega's lineage. In fact, they announced the Red Angry Bird, Sega famous character Red Angry Bird, just the other day. It creates a sense of emotional distress because you're crushing patients instead of helping them. And I think the idea of a sentient hospital trapped inside a ball to collect patients to death speaks to the emotional state of the healthcare system in this world. That or we can trap Danica Patrick in a plastic ball and have her roll around. But I feel like the hospital is more bewildering. Personally,
see, that's it. I want to go on the Sega tip. I'll never forget, just for whatever reason, that watch this show is probably one of the more abiding memories, even though there's a lot of memorable aspects of it. But there's that episode of Breaking Bad where Jesse Pinkman is playing one of the Sonic. I think it's the first Sonic All Stars Racing or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then was it the second one that had Danica Patrick? Maybe I don't know whether
Transformed.
Transformed, which is really good game, excellent game. But I guess they're doing what's the new Sonic Racing called at the moment. But if they did one that was more of a sequel to Transformed, let's just have Jesse Pinkman instead of Danica Patrick. I think that would be an excellent guest character. It would be less whiplash because, we've seen him play in the game. So That's why true. Not be in the game?
If it's in the game, it's in real life. I don't know.
I do wonder how Yoshi would fare in Super Metroid. Evidently can't just eat up all the low level enemies, but I don't know, do you upgrade the capacity to have eggs follow you around? Every missile tank just becomes an additional egg that you can carry behind you?
You got eggs, you got super eggs, you got power eggs, you got the morph egg.
You're just describing Banjo-Tooie.
Yeah, it's true. There was a lot of the grenade egg, the fire, the ice.
The mechanized egg.
The mechanized one was kind of like a morph ball, wasn't it? Because it went into little gaps and stuff, but then it self-destruct. Actually, it's more like the thing in Axiom Verge that substitutes for the morph ball. So you heard it here first. Axiom Verge totally ripped off Banjo-Tooie.
Banjo 3.
Definitely, Crocomire, is already kind of a Yoshi's Island-ish boss battle. Yeah, I don't know.
To be fair, they're so close to it with Kraid, aren't they? Because they have the little fake out Kraid that's more on the scale of what he was in the NES game. And then he comes... So all they just need is instead of it being in separate rooms, it's just Kamek comes along and dusts him with his magic spell and then he grows to that size.
Right. So it almost works too well because also Yoshi has a transformation, so maybe you'd have that annoying timer you're a mole right now, you can go through the morph ball passages, but you haven't been quick enough, just back to the beginning with you. You've got the grapple beam, but it's going to run out if you don't get to the big... What is that thing that's just got Yoshi's face on it? And what is that actually meant to be, other than just the end of the vehicle section? Yeah, maybe it's best. We don't know.
If you put Yoshi in monkey ball, would he be in the egg in the ball or an egg inside the ball?
That's yeah.
If he or she wore pants, would he wear them like this or like this?
I like to think he'd be an egg. He'd be inside an egg inside the ball.
Oh,
but
you know
what? But not in the order you think. The egg is around the ball.
I think we need to see Poochie of not Yoshi fame, but of Simpsons fame in like a modern Mortal Kombat game. So he can have the insanely photorealistic like fatalities applied to him.
Jesus Christ! I thought you were going to say he would be administering them,
or in a Tony Hawk game.
Well, yeah, that's true. But
would you ride him, or would he ride the board?
Just imagine, every time, you're playing as whatever, because there's kind of guest characters that go pretty far these days, and there's a lot of horror movie stuff like Ghostface from Scream or whatever. So like Ghostface is like chopping Poochie in half, but instead of the, Ghostface wins fatality, deep voiceover thing, you just get Krusty bursting out of the screen going, Poochie's dead!
So again, taking it back to Monkey Ball, could it be Ghostface in the ball and he's rolling up 26-year-old teenagers?
But also, you don't know if a randomly selected character is wearing the Ghostface mask. You don't know which one it is.
It's always Big the Cat. Let's be honest. It's always Big the Cat. It's always Big the Cat under that mask.
So I was trying to remember what the guy, what's the name of the guy who shows up in the Simpsons family during that Poochie episode? Because I'm looking at the
human equivalent, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the plot on Wikipedia, and they don't even mention that because it's, it's kind of the one gag, right? Like it's not a big thing. But instead of having Poochie in Mortal Kombat, why not that dude? Everyone is just
I would accept that. What that is analogous to the James McCloud thing in F-Zero, isn't it? Because he's not a fox. It's like the human version of Fox's dad in F-Zero. So it's essentially that. Perfect.
I just want Worker and Parasite in Mortal Kombat. Like,
yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean that's the thing. Itchy, Scratchy. They basically do fatalities, don't they? In that, I mean, they are that outlandish.
There is a Super Nintendo game that's very terrible. That's Itchy and Scratchy themed. That it's just fatalities, and that's pretty much it. And bad platforming.
No, I'm thinking. One thing I would like to see, I would love to see Ridley in Monster Hunter. That would be really cool. But also, what do you think about McBain?
Oh.
McBain in Splatoon.
Or just a McBain-inspired character.
Think of the puns that McBain could do in Splatoon. He could probably come up with some good ones.
Now I just want to put McBain in the monkey ball, too. So it's fine. I honestly, anything going inside a glass ball, being ejected off the side of the stage is very funny to me.
But you got to work in his one weakness of being offered a salmon puff.
Well, I'm holding right now a figurine of Kirby in car mode. So, like, since you keep going back to Super Monkey Ball, would Kirby go around the ball, or would he be inside the ball?
What if
I guess both are possible.
What if he tries to eat the ball from inside it?
No, mouthful mode, monkey ball.
Mouthful mode, but from the inside.
He's like but he should be the one character that isn't in the ball. He's around the ball.
Right.
Oh, it's terrifying. That's truly horrific. I need it. I need it, Nintendo.
Update.
Make it work. Make it work. Make it in the Switch 2 version of Monkey Ball. God, what a nightmare. What a nightmare that is. You hit it. You hit the nightmare image. So now I'm drawn between trying to draw Kirby as the ball for the episode art, or Big the Cat.
But also, like what you're proposing, like Kirby trying to eat the ball while inside the ball, like doesn't he like just flip inside out? Is that what you want to inflict on the world?
Yes,
to see
that's what I want. I want to see
entrails.
I want to see what's inside the Kirby.
Just nothingness.
We never get to see it. Now we're going to get to see it when it's plastered.
I think it's some sort of cosmic craziness, isn't it? It's
who knows? Who knows?
Has to be.
It's time to find out. It's time to find out.
Is it like the boss of like Star Allies? Like there's something like there's a Kirby inside it, or something that looks like Kirby inside of it at the end.
Sure.
It's like, gee, this is this has ominous like potential.
It's the Yell of Quest of Kirby missions. Yes, I agree. It's ominous potential. Oh my god. Kirby is the ball. That's mouthful mode Kirby is all right. I could just call it episode title Mouthful Ball, but that's I might find the limit. I might have found the NWR limit. We'll find out together. All right, emails.
Monkey Mouthful.
Jesus Christ.
SMMB. Super Monkey instead of Super Monkey Ball, Super Mouthful Mode Ball.
Oh. To write all this down, all this horrible phrases down. All right. Anyway, emails, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. As a reminder, we're going to be trying to do our retroactive for Monster Hunter. Not Monster Hunter. Good Lord. Monster Kid.
Wonder Boy 3,
Wonder Boy.
The Dragon's Trap.
Fuck these series. I hate its naming. Wonder Boy Dragon's Trap on Switch. There you go. I'm gonna get it right one of these days. Next week. So get your comments in before Thursday so that we can use them. It's email or in the NWR Discord. There is a thread created for them to put your comments. On that, we're gonna call the show. Greg, what's our music for this week?
Well, we of course had the announcement of the GameCube games with the Switch 2 Direct last week, and I think a strong initial offering with those three. You've got it's kind of representing the sort of triforce of companies that made arcade hardware right in the GameCube generation, because you've got Namco represented with Soul Calibur 2, you've got Sega represented with F-Zero, and of course Nintendo themselves with Wind Waker. But yeah, that's a good three to start with. But of course F-Zero GX, first of all, Soul Calibur 2, good get. I mean, that's, when we say with NSO, a lot of the time, like, oh, well, there's a reason why you aren't going to get this like cool thing, and it's because the publisher's holding it up for its own collection or whatever. Like, Soul Calibur 2 would seem like the kind of thing that they could have done a re-release for themselves. But so I'm not sure what Nintendo would have, kind of offered them to make that possible, but it's cool that they did, especially considering it was, the best-selling version, right? On GameCube, because of Link's presence to a large degree and all that. So that's definitely cool, but F-Zero GX coming back for the first time in such a long time. I know we've said it before, but it's just worth repeating. When you had Virtual Console for the N64, that was at the end of 2006, so 10 years, a little over 10 years after that platform launched. For GameCube here, in 2025, that's going to be 24 years later from when the platform launched.
I don't want to talk about how old we are now.
So it is belated, this kind of thing, and especially F-Zero GX have got a lot of affection for that. And on this topic, I have a request that had been sitting on for quite some time, in the hope that there would be an apt occasion to bring it out, because it's from F-Zero GX, from a long-time listener and emailer, Adolf Vega. And, all these years went by and it didn't happen. And we did get F-Zero 99, but that is so steeped in the Super Nintendo one, it just would have felt wrong. Because this request is like early aughts as all hell. And indeed, not that I know this sort of area terribly well, but it's very early aughts Sega in particular, because of course they did develop F-Zero GX, as we mentioned, in the arcades as well on that Triforce hardware. But 8 years ago to the day that we started recording this, April 10th, in 2017, not long after the original Switch came out, Adolf Vega requested Captain Falcon's theme from F-Zero GX, because I think all the characters have their own themes. So this is, it's got that kind of early Sega kind of vibe to it, which is, kind of fun now, all these years removed from when it was there originally. It is not, though, whether anybody we expected this, it's not the story mode credits theme, which is about Captain Falcon, and I believe it rhymes Falcon Punch with lunch. So that's a whole other thing.
Why is it not that song?
I don't know whether it's anything to do with the fact I played the Japanese version. Maybe it was
Jesus
in that
Christ.
too, but I was genuinely shocked to discover that. But
Black Tar wishes it was that poetic.
Maybe, we could use that story. Hey, all you got to do is beat the story mode in F-Zero GX when it comes out.
All you have to do is beat the story mode, okay.
That'll be really easy. You can always do that. But yeah, no such feats of dexterity required to enjoy this Captain Falcon's theme.
All right, well, on that, it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.